Hello and welcome to the Housing.com webinar on how home buying preferences are changing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our Facebook audience as well who are watching us live right now. I'm Jamur Ghosh, Editor-in-Chief, Housing.com News, and we have a power-packed panel for you today. Mr. Irfan Razak, he is the Chairman and the Managing Director of the Prestige Group. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Abhishek Lodha is the MD and CEO of the Lodha Group. Hi, Abhishek.
Hi.
Mohit Malhotra is the MD and CEO of Godrej Properties Limited. Mohit, great to have you here. Sangeeta Prasad is the MD and CEO of Mahindra Lifespace Developers Limited.
Hi, Jamur.
Hi. So I'd like to start with the importance of a home, before we get down to the actual audience questions. I think the one thing that has happened because of all of these lockdowns is that we have spent more time at home. We have spent doing a lot of things at home, which we haven't done for a long time now. Right now, we are working from home. We are healing from home. We are bonding with our families. Above all else, we are keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe at home. Would it be safe to say then that this experience, all the bad things aside, it has really made us understand the true value of a home? Abhishek, what do you think?
Absolutely, Jamur. I couldn't agree more. I think having spent the last 6 to 7 weeks at home, I can personally share that the importance of the home, how it bonds the family together, how the home is not only a safe and secure habitat, but it also is one of the most stable things in life. Stock markets can go up and down, the outside world can shut down, but truly a home is a man's haven. And in these times, we learn back to what our grandparents used to tell us, that buy your home, buy your land, because in the long term, that is the best investment you can make. And I've truly found in the last 6-7 weeks that it's really brought this truth home for me.
Yeah. Mr. Razak, what do you think?
I can't agree any less with Abhishek. You see, now, pre-COVID, everybody, including the millennials, always used to say, the world is my oyster. Now, once you got locked in, then you started thinking the oyster has become my world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That means you're locked in. You're in that oyster. That has become your world and nothing else.
Yeah.
And now today, the youngsters and everybody else who got locked in are thinking, okay, I've got this oyster, I've locked in here. Now, how can I expand my oyster?
Yeah.
Because everybody is saying, listen, I've got this 1-bed BHK home, I've got this 2 BHK home, I've got this 3 BHK home. Listen, I'm locked up, I'm cooped up, there's not enough space. How can I expand myself? How can I get more space for myself?
Yeah.
And I have this money lying with me. It's a saving. I put it in somewhere else, which has not really given me any money, or I've kept it in an FD, and I think I'd rather use that money now. This is the time for me to see how I can upgrade myself, how I can better lifestyle for myself, and get one notch higher. And for those who are living in rental accommodation, they've learned that, listen, at least there should be some asset I own which I can call my own. Earlier, the youngsters used to feel that, listen, why should I get locked up with a 10-year or a 15-year or a 20-year home loan and get stuck in one city? But today, they've learned that, listen, whichever city I am in, whichever the city of my choice, let me at least have one place called my own in that city, which I can say it is my own, which in over a period of time, not only will it be my own, it will grow in value, it will grow in worth. And finally, because once I buy a home, it's just not about value growth. It's also about the comfort and the fact that there's an asset against your name, which you're creating over a period of time, which you can do today, which you can leave it for your next generation, or cash out in some time of need at any time that you need it. So I believe that's the thought process has changed. And hence, I believe that the overall, demand for housing, the overall need for housing, overall need for different types of housing will also change, and consumer tastes also will change as we go along.
Yeah. Sangeeta, what are your thoughts on this?
I wouldn't at all disagree. The first thing is, I think it has taught us that home is a safe haven now. It's a place, and human beings are very adaptive. We have found our me space, we space. everything in that small 2 BHK or 3 BHK or whatever you have for yourself. That's one. The second thing is, the home is as physical and tangible as it can get. We sometimes compare investments. We have realized in the last 1 or 2 months that investments are as transient if they are not physical. So a home will continue to be a place where you can live, share, and enjoy. Personally, I'm very delighted when this family time is happening. We are realizing, I think Mr. Razak spoke about the oyster and the world. I think the world has still remained, world is still the oyster for the young people, thanks to the use of technology, thanks to having a peek into the outside world because of all the things which are available at our resources. So I think it's not a binary situation. It is actually a situation where we are realizing as human beings, this is also a way to be. And thank God I have this place where I can be physically existent while I'm with people around me.
Yeah. Mohit, has your experience been similar about the whole lockdown situation and what a home means to us now?
I think that, if you look at home, home is something which satisfies various needs of human beings. And if you look at, say, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have a physiological need of shelter, safety. I think the other need is the security. And I think COVID has kind of explained people the need of security and home, the way it is providing security. And I think one area which people forget is that it also satisfies a lot of our emotional needs. We can't just consider home as a physical asset. So I think home buying is something which will, in my mind, is something which will continue because it satisfies various fundamental human needs. What this experience has, the other thing which is more of a financial logic rather than a physical, emotional perspective, is if you are owning a home, it's a capex for you.
Yeah.
And if you are renting it out, it's an opex. Now, if in a world where people are now grappling with job insecurity. And some of the various minor hiccups which might come in over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months, people realize that owning assets and not paying rent is a far better option because it again gives you a sense of security and manage your cash flow properly.
Yeah.
Now, Abhishek mentioned about there was a lot of discussion in past about owning stocks and mutual funds and comparing them with homes. I think that's fundamentally flawed because a stock market can come down by 40% in less than a month, and then you are in a real tight spot in managing your day-to-day cash flow needs. Thankfully, homes are much more stable assets. So I think both from a financial perspective and from the emotional psychological needs, I think this is something which people have understood, and I feel the trend of people buying homes to live is going to accelerate.
Yeah. For my next question, I'd like to talk about the digital medium because we've received a lot of questions around this, not just in this webinar, but this set of questions has been common through all of our webinars. So obviously during the lockdown, we have relied very heavily on the digital medium, be it, having virtual site visits, be it staying in touch with customers, through video calling, etc. So my question to you is two-pronged. One is, do you think even after the COVID-19 scare is over, do you see the digital medium playing a far greater role in real estate transactions than it has earlier? And secondly, and this is what our audience is asking us, that, buying a home, there is a touch and a feel aspect to it. So how can the digital help me with that? And a lot of our channel partners are asking that, how can I convince my home buyers to make a purchase decision when the digital is perhaps not able to give that touch and feel? So you're all experts. So Mohit, maybe we could start with you. What do you think? How do we navigate this issue?
Yeah, I think we are human beings are very adaptive, and I remember almost a year and a half back, we had a discussion in our office where I said, is there a way we can sell digital homes digitally? And actually people thought it's a very foolish idea, and something which should not be discussed in the meetings. Uh, and the same team, which my sales and marketing team, which actually completely rejected that idea, saying it's impossible to do, uh, in the last 15 days of March, during the lockdown, actually did close to 800 crores of sales, purely through digital channels.
Wow.
So, I think we underestimate our own ability and customers' ability to adapt, their buying behaviors. So I think personally, I am a big believer of digital medium. I think any question which you have asked were true for every single digital sales. A lot of people used to say, how can you buy clothing digitally? Because it's a fashion, right? You have to wear it to see it and experience it. I know in my home, the amount of shopping which happens digitally on, some of these things. So
Okay.
I think homes as a category are obviously the most difficult and most evolved thing. It's one of the most expensive products which you can buy in your life. But again, the digital medium is so evolved, with the use of VR and, with the use of technology, you can almost experience, the living experience which you would have. I think while we have been able to sell digitally, and there was no other option except to buy digitally, I think digital will be a very large medium for influencing and helping us in sales. Probably the touch and feel might still exist. But again, if you look at NRI buying homes in India, I think NRI buying home from India can completely happen digitally, because even there, they are relying on most of it through digital medium. So I personally feel it's a trend which will exist and accelerate, and something which I'm quite bullish about.
Mr. Razak, you had a big smile, when I spoke about touch and feel. So, what's your take on this? Digital versus touch and feel. How do we navigate this?
No, I think we cannot make a differentiator between digital and touch and feel. Basically, I must congratulate Mohit for having done those numbers that he said he did during the lockdown. But digital is something which is real. Digital imparts all the information to the customer, and it gives all the the required. Digital also can give you the walkthroughs, like Mohit rightly said. You can even feel the space. You can go through the entire space. You can get the feel of whatever the overall look and feel is. But digital is one thing that will probably give the customer the information. The interest will be created, and what Mohit said was probably he has got the letter of interest, and maybe he's got customers coming and saying, "Look, listen, we would like to be inclined to buy your product." Because see, two things: the customer also looks at the brand,
Yeah.
looks at who's selling the product,
Yeah.
and where the location is and how it's priced. It's just not one thing on buying a real estate home, because see, we must understand that real estate or a home is for a consumer, it's the single most largest investment that they would be doing probably in the entire lifetime. There may be some who have got it very well made. They may buy the second home or third home. But the most important thing is for the general public, for most of the people who are buying a home, it is it is their dream, it is their desire, it's what they look for, they dream about in their life. And okay, if they've done well for themselves, later on they may upgrade themselves. That's a separate thing. But when they're making that decision to buy a home, we must realize as developers, and we should also be responsible to that effect, that we give the right information. Digital is fine. We can create the interest, and ultimately, at the end of the day, there has to be some physical contact in terms of signing documents, in terms of them coming and seeing physically where the location is, and all of it. Because see, I can show them anything on digitally properly. It can be projected well, but it's always a combination of the digital interest created and look and feel at the end of the day, where a transaction also can get completed digitally. It's not that it can't be, where I'll say, listen, you please book, this is the price, this is the overall deal.
Yeah.
And in case you don't want it, you can always cancel and get back your 100% refund. But there, I have a little difference in opinion marketing, because I believe that I don't want to do that job twice, thrice, all over again. I don't want to create that excitement and then afterwards then get a deflated balloon where somebody comes and puts a pin, and we are opening it up for customers to keep shopping around and then not taking decisions. I believe if somebody takes a decision, they should take a decision to go ahead and be serious about it and go on. So we also are doing some real work, and at the end of the day, we survive really, and we don't get into any stress, and or we are not in any delusion at some point of time.
Yeah.
But then
Abhishek,
I think
sorry.
digital is the way ahead, and we can and we should exploit digitally, because if we don't, then we will be left behind.
True, true. Abhishek, there was another aspect of the question, right, where it's obvious that these are channel partners writing in, but they're asking about, how do we leverage this medium to convince the buyer, to go ahead and make a purchase decision. So what can you add to that? What advice do we have for people?
Jumar, I think the answers that Mohit and Mr. Razak gave, sort of cover the span of things around the digital question. And can you really sell fully on digitally? Do you sell partially and then partially on touch points? My view and input to our channel partner friends is there are two things which have happened during COVID lockdown. One is those which are driven by fear, and the other are things which are really improvements in efficiency. The ones which are driven by fear will go away in the next 6 months. Those which are driven by efficiency will stay for a long, long period of time. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if a channel partner was meeting a client 6 times and to give different parts of the information and then try to convince him to buy, has to go away. The channel partner should set himself up digitally and at the most through voice calling devices, etc., to pass on all the information in as organized a manner as he can. Similarly, developers will do a large part of their pre-selling, if I can call it that, prior to the consumer necessarily coming to the the site visit will definitely happen at some point going to live or what they are going to be living in. But just that instead of having 5 visits, it will be down to 1 visit. So the fear of not meeting any human being is going to go away in due course as treatment and vaccine of COVID comes. The efficiency of doing things in 10 different site visits versus doing it all beforehand and then visiting once and making the decision, that is something which will, in my opinion, will last. So almost for all things to do with COVID, break it into 2 parts. What is fear and what is efficiency? Whatever is efficiency, let's focus on that because that will last.
Yeah. Sangeeta, do you also believe, that this medium is, it's now entered the real estate lexicon and it's here to stay even after the pandemic fears are over?
I suppose the panel was focusing rightly on the same part. I would just like to take it a little beyond because there were lovely views which I heard, so I don't want to add value to that. A real estate sale, a residential real estate sale is not an event. It's a journey.
Yeah.
So I think it is important to realize that how do we leverage digital across the value chain from the pre-sale to the possession. And I believe it's a hybrid situation. The more we go digital, the more trust and empathy is required. So I may be going digital and using the most savviest of technology, but if my customer doesn't trust me, so transparency becomes very important. More information you give through the digital channel, more you make your project available to everyone, will people start being responsive to you. So that's very important. So that's one element. The second element is, like Abhishek was mentioning about site visits, how can I make my technology platform such that the site is available and visible to my customers? And I am available to them because I don't think human beings like bots only in their lives. They like to see. Like I can see you, I'm talking to you, even while it is digital and virtual. So that's the second element I would like to bring. And the third is, I really liked Abhishek's point on efficiency and fear. I think what he also, I would interpret it as temporary and permanent. There will be some permanent changes which are irreversible and good for the customer, good for us. There are some knee-jerk things we as developers need to distinguish between and see what I can take across the value chain and not just at the pre-sale sale level, because that's not quite enough in a residential real estate transaction.
So for my next question, I'm going to borrow words from one of our audience members. So Sachin Agarwal, he asks about the balance between livability and affordability. And for me, that is one of the major issues, you know, in today's conversation. So I think we've all accepted and acknowledged, you know, that we are going to need more from our home, because now, you know, we'll be working from home, we'll be doing a lot more things at home than we were doing earlier. So that part is accepted, but it's also equally true that we are a price sensitive market. For the majority of my home buyers in the affordable to mid segment, especially, even a few square feet more, even 1 lakh more, that is him having to push himself. It's not possible for everybody to do. So this difficult balance between livability and affordability, you are all market leaders. How do we achieve this balance? Mr. Razak, what do you think? What should the sector be doing?
No, it's a very important point you have brought up, Jhumar, because one side is we can make palaces, but then who's your target audience? Who's your customer? Because if you take the Indian scenario, we have millions of people who need homes, but it's not that everybody can afford a very expensive home. But at the same time, they want something which has all amenities, all facilities. It has got the open space. You see, I always believe that whatever development you do, it should build a fantastic and a beautiful community.
Yes.
And the second thing is, the next generation, the children, you should ignite their minds. So you should build such an environment. It should not just be only concrete. It should not just be walls. But, you know, you have to do that balance. First of all, we have to make sure that the sizes of homes are such that according to your cost. You see, today, you know, real estate, especially in the mid segment, has become a cost plus business. It's cost of land, it's your construction cost, it's your overheads and your whatever reasonable margins that are there, which takes care of all the risks. It's no longer a business where you can command and demand any price and then people will pay for it. Those days are gone long ago.
Yeah.
It could probably exist in some micro markets, but those are all exceptions.
Yeah.
But today, if you really want to sell homes, you want to do volumes, it is about how you can produce the best at a reasonable cost, offer it at a good cost. Your location should be good, your product should be good, and your offering should be also appeal to people's minds. So this is a combination of everything, and always said that affordability need not be cheap. Affordability need not be substandard. Affordability, see, that's the type of drill we make in our organization. We always say that, listen, whatever you do, make it well. I may not see in an affordable home, I may not put Italian marble on the walls. I may not clad it with granite all over the place, but I can do a clean, neat lines. I can finish the product nicely, which is affordable, livable, and it's a thing. And very rightly you said about 1 lakh of rupees being extra for the person who buys that home. See, I have a fight with the authorities all the time because of taxes, because of guideline values, and the stamp duty goes up. And I keep telling them, listen, I'm not fighting for myself. I'm a developer. I've already sold the product. My customer, if you increase the guideline value, lands up paying a higher stamp duty than what he nearly has to, because his document value is different and the guideline value at the end of the day when the product is ready is different, and he pays up stamp duty on the higher value. Even 10,000 rupees, why 1 lakh is extra for them? They won't have that money they won't have budgeted that money for getting their khata transferred, to get their assessments done. So we offer a complete gamut of services end to end and make the product affordable, at the same time livable, because livability and creating that community, I believe, should be the baseline. And then you need to see how you can make the product affordable to your client and to your target audience. It's not necessary that you also do mid-income housing. We also do a luxury or ultra luxury, but then that ultra luxury is for that segment of audience which can afford that. So affordability is also a sort of a relative term. What is affordable to me may not be affordable to you. But the most important is creating the product which will make the consumer happy and the families happy. And that, I think, is the recipe for brand building. And I'm sure all my panelists here have worked hard to build that brand, and that's why they're successful.
What do you think, Sangeeta? Like, how, as a sector, how do we achieve this rather difficult balance?
I was thinking of something, when people ask us to balance, I was thinking of a classified matrimonials ad, and I was not thinking of a girl or a boy because it's very difficult to generalize. So, most of the time we see a residential places seem to be a classified matrimonial ad. You have to have this, you have to have that, and you have to have that. So what I would say is, as consumers also today, when we are living at home, we are realizing functionality is transcending over aesthetics. We of course like a beautiful place, but I am more concerned, can I do my work from home in a quiet place, which is my space? Can my daughter parallelly do her online classes? Can my mother lie down peacefully in a room? And I'm deliberately giving an information, and therefore what happens to a place which is smaller? Larger I'm not even getting into, because there is no trade-off there. The trade-off is here in the smaller places. So it is actually reimagining the places within. Where do I keep the walls? So as developers and architect friends, we need to really reimagine and look at our mindset. So I'll give you an example why it is possible. I was in Chennai earlier. I had a large space. I have come to Bombay, which is a smaller space, but I feel Bombay does a damn good job of redefining spaces and utilizing spaces better. So I think it can be done, and functionality has to be taken into credence as the common areas and the amenities together, because that will play a very important role in the current situation in the new normal.
Yeah. Abhishek, what do you think, just taking Sangeeta's point forward? So she's touched upon it. So do you think spatial planning is going to play a major role in this balance that we are talking about? What's your take on this?
Jamar, my view on affordability is slightly different. I think it's a false trade-off that is pushed on our head, that we can either buy lesser space or we'll have to necessarily shell out more. The fact of the matter is, affordability is a function not just of the price of the unit, but also at what price do you get the financing to buy it. It's very important for us to recognize that 15 years ago, home loan rates in India used to be 17-18%. Today, your EMI is at 7.5% and probably going only lower given all that is happening in the general economy. And this is a huge, huge boost to the purchasing power of every individual. While purchasing, you do have to remember, like other panelists said, buy whatever best fits your needs. There are some people who will always buy the blue chip stock, and there are some people who like to gamble on the mid cap. My personal view is that a home is a safe haven investment. Go for the blue chip stock if you can afford it or would like to afford it. Having said that, when you are buying, take into account the fact that the home is the only asset where you get leverage to this extent. Leverage, when I say, is you can get a loan of 80%, 85%, even 90%, and you get it at very, very cheap rates. So when you are making this investment, know that this is a great enabler to create wealth for your family. And I can only say that I find that going forward, the prices of blue chips will keep going up. And I think it is in the interest of the market that prices move up slightly, because without prices moving up, there is no wealth creation. And wealth creation for our middle class will happen, as it has happened in China, as it has happened in the US, by the prices of homes going up. I find it very funny, I would say, when certain people say that prices should go down. Who wants to buy anything which is falling in prices? I don't think I have ever wanted to buy a stock which is falling every day in price. I want it to be stable and more preferably moving up a little bit. So I think just with various other trends, the growth in demand that we talked about, the lack of supply, given that labor is going to be short for some time, the value of good quality homes, especially ready stock, is going to move up. now is a time where you should do whatever best you can to buy a long-term home for yourself, and take benefit of the fact that home loans are going to become cheaper and cheaper going forward.
Yeah. So Mohit, we've had three very, very distinct point of views. So of course, I'm curious to know, how do you see this issue of affordability and livability and the balance between the two?
I think I might, this is in my mind, as Abhishek was saying, is probably not a right trade-off. Probably, the question could be thought as, would somebody, how would you, talk about ticket size and compact homes versus the need for spaces, which we have all realized sitting at home, how important the spaces are, which Sangeeta also mentioned about. So I think in my mind, there are two things. There is going to be a compact, smaller spaces, and there are going to be medium spaces, and there are going to be large spaces. There are different consumers who prefer different things. You can afford a much larger house spaces if you live in suburb rather than a city center. But some people might prefer city center locations and prefer a more compact apartment. So different consumers have different needs, and hence there will be need for all kind of products. I think the important point is that if you're designing a compact unit, are we focusing on the livability? How is the spatial planning done?
Yeah.
And whenever we have had discussions in our offices, people always correlate large size means more livability, and small size means less livability. And my only counter to that is that if anybody has traveled to a cruise ship, and if lived in that small cabin, it's unbelievably small, you know, uh, but every single space in that place is so thoughtfully designed that there is no wastage. So I think for us as developers, designing homes which are going to be compact, because there is a large segment which can only afford that, but making sure that every single space is properly utilized will be very necessary.
Yeah. For my next question, I'm again picking up on a trend, that's happened because of the lockdowns, and that's work from home. I'd like to read out one of our audience questions. So Vardarajan Iyer asks, owing to the fact that most IT companies are now trying out a work from home model of their own, will the one thing that drives prices across residential projects, that is location, will this still remain relevant in the post COVID-19 era? Again, I think this is a very interesting question, because the whole work from home scenario, it throws up various possibilities, right? Because I don't necessarily need to live or try to live closer to my office space. I can take up maybe a bigger place, a better place, somewhere far off, because I don't have to commute to work every day. What's your thought on this? How does work from home, change the way we approach residential real estate marketing? Sangeeta, would you like to start?
Uh, See, location is not, so location is a variable which has many inputs. It's not just the proximity to the place I work. So one is that, because I may like to, so I am living in Mumbai, I live in Bandra, my office is in Worli. So I could have taken a place in Worli, and I'm keeping the other variables of economics and all that, was Bandra and Worli are places which could be compared and may not be compared. But why have I taken Bandra as a location? Because I have seen there are other elements, recreation, social, my daughter's wherewithal, the type of infrastructure, retail, social, medical, how I would like to live my life, what kind of home offerings are available. So it is location, working from office and working from home is just one variable. Personally, I think there are many variables, and the type of product will play a role. I think that is why we spoke about it earlier. Location will still continue playing a role. The variables, the input variables may change, the levers may change, but location will still continue to be critical.
Yeah. Mr. Razak, do you think work from home is going to impact the way we sort of are visualizing our residential products, or do you think this is just a temporary trend? What's your take on this?
See, now whether you work from home or you work from office, it's irrespective. You need a good, comfortable space for yourself, and it always does good if you have a certain extra space in your house which you can have as a spare room.
Yeah.
You call it a half room or you call it an additional room. And what you need is that becomes your space apart from your bedrooms and living rooms. That's one place where you can have it as a study or a library or whatever it is. It's not necessary that you'll be working from home all the time. It sounds very fancy. Now it's got the attention of media and everybody is talking of WFH. But I believe this WFH has happened only because of compulsion. And long term, again, people being social animals, going to office has a different chemistry, it has a different productivity. And people, I'll tell you now, all the people either who are listening onto this panel or in this panel itself, how many of you are just yearning to get out and go and attend your office? I think almost all of you. But then, okay, it's a concept that is there, which IT companies are talking and exploring. And if they want to implement it, so be it. They're only expanding their market, expanding their entire base. And who are we to say that you should or should not do that? But the thing is, space requirements will be required. And then location is something that I endorse Sangeeta's view, where she said it's very important in any case. Location and where you are wanting to be is the, I think, single most deciding factor to buy a home. It has to have all the other social infrastructure around you, which will, whether it's a school, it's a hospital, whether it's a shopping center, and entertainment, all of that is important. No doubt today shopping centers are closed, but that's all a temporary phenomenon. COVID is not going to be there forever until a cure is found. Maybe 6 months, 9 months later, we'll be having a different conversation altogether. But yes, we need to provide for seeing that we have our space. We get that additional space when we have that not only inside the house and outside the house also. And location, I believe, is of prime importance. It's not necessary that it has to be within the city center. It can be anywhere, but the most important is you need also to have connectivity. Yeah. Today, you have most of the urban spaces, urban cities have got metro, and even far-flung places are connected with metro. And with the metro connectivity, you can get from one place to the other very soon. But like you have to have all your other parameters, which I talked about, in place. And the rest of it is something that each individual has to decide on their own specific requirements.
Yeah. So Abhishek, do you agree that location will continue to be one of the prime things that we aspire to, work from home or not? What's your take on this?
Jumar, my view is that there have certainly COVID and its implications will lead to some additional things that we need at our house. Work from home, I believe, is something which will happen on a greater basis. When I say work from home, I don't mean 100% working from home. What I mean work from home is that while there may be few who may work from home, all 5-6 days of the week, a much larger proportion of us might go to the office 3 or 4 days a week and work from home 2 or 3 days of the week. And therefore, the need for an additional space which is the me space where I can work well and be organized becomes important. As we've seen, Indians are blessed to have the ability or the access to domestic staff. However, COVID has led to the fact that part-time domestic staff is not going to be so easily able to access, and therefore the need to have some space to house your domestic staff, if you like one, also becomes important. Thirdly, some outdoor space in the house, whether it's a terrace, a balcony, or something similar, or a small private garden, also becomes important in the medium term. So certainly what we used to want in a home, which is only a living room and 2 bedrooms and a kitchen, may become bigger. We may need more things from the home. And I think that's a trend which will play out over the next few years. Having said that, in terms of location, I think location has been universally important. 2 months of COVID is not going to change that. The fact of the matter is that when you want to, when, as Sangeeta mentioned, location has so many things, maybe accessibility of your workplace may become less important in your range of parameters to decide whether the location is right for you. But everything else, school, healthcare, retail, where your friends and family are living, so on and so forth, are continuing to be important. And therefore, if somebody says, I'll go and live in a tier 3 city which has very little infrastructure and I can just work from there. Well, man is not an animal which only lives to work. We work in order to have a full life, and a full life can only be had when the entire ecosystem is in place, and therefore location will continue to remain important.
Absolutely. Mohit, you'd like to add something?
So I think all the speakers have covered the points. I completely agree with Abhishek's points. The need from home will be fundamentally redefined post COVID now.
Yeah. So we've got time for one last question. So I'm going to pick up something which, again, we've received questions around this, in absolute bulk. So what our audience wants to know is, in light of all the social distancing norms, are we expecting the independent home to make a comeback? Which were once the plus points of an apartment complex, which is the shared amenities. You get to interact with people, you can build a community. Right now, in the midst of social distancing, these are also disadvantages in that sense. So there are a lot of questions about, is the independent home going to make a comeback? What are your thoughts? Mr. Razak, what do you think?
Again, it's a question of affordability.
Yeah.
And it's a function of location where the independent home, because you can't get an independent home in today's day and date in city center.
Yeah.
You have to move to suburbs, and there are a lot of villa projects, and it depends on how much you can afford to put in. Like I said in my opening remarks, like if you have the savings, and like Abhishek rightly said, today interest rates have fallen so low. So why not use that advantage, take that additional home loan, move to a slightly larger place, whether it's a larger apartment or a larger bungalow, you want a villa, you want a semi-detached home somewhere in the suburbs, and live comfortably and have more open space. So that's a huge option, but then it depends. See, now it depends on the target audience at whom you are addressing to, and if the target audience can afford that, nothing like it. In fact, there's something else that is there, which will make a comeback. Is people may buy a plot of land in a suburb and try and build their own home by themselves. Yeah. And now the plotted developments of late have become quite popular in certain cities that we operate in. I don't know whether Mumbai can ever do that, but in a Bangalore or even a Hyderabad, these things happen. And I think that's also a possibility. That's also catching people's fancy. And see, you're not confined into your own apartment, and then you're completely under the siege of the society or the association or your owners association, where they'll lay down certain rules. If you have your own independent space, at least within the gated community, there may be certain amount of restriction, but within your own home, you can definitely be more comfortable and do what you feel without really being restricted.
Mohit, what do you think? Do you think this is going to be a trend going forward, or like Mr. Razak said, it will be a selective thing? What do you think?
See, my views are very similar to Mr. Irfan. So I think it's almost covered. So I will leave other panelists to speak about it.
Sangeeta, is there something you'd like to add? Do you have perhaps a different view?
I just wanted to add one thing, that apart from both have their advantages, and space availability will also be a key factor of, apart from affordability, which Mr. Razak spoke of. So let's not think life will be binary. Spaces will be reimagined for different kinds of clients and customers.
Yeah. Abhishek, so the last words are yours. What's your take on this?
My summary is that open spaces will become more important. Those who can afford it will buy their independent plots or villas. Those who are living in standalone buildings will want more balconies or terrace space, and those who are living in complexes will enjoy those complexes where there are large open spaces. I think indoor gyms and swimming pools and all are still going to have their place, but some people may enjoy it or not. But the ability to go and have an evening walk out or a morning walk, and for the children to go and play their game even if they are wearing masks, I think the value of open space, which is the human connecting back with nature, is a trend which is absolutely going to become stronger in my view.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for a fabulous discussion. But that's all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys soon. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. It was good interaction. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.